and welcome to Apparitions and Alibis. I'm your host, AJ Stallman. This is episode 6, and it is a spookster with some history thrown in. Before we get into it, I would like to formally apologize for my lack of enthusiasm in episode 5, the Richard Mark Ivanitz case. I do struggle with chronic illness, and I was really pushing myself to get an episode out, and with that was the lack of excitement during recording. I hope you all will forgive me and put it in the past as we move forward to a more hopeful and positive future. This episode is near and dear to my heart as it takes place in Claremont, Virginia, a place my grandparents lived for most of my life. In 2019, I lost my grandfather, whom I called Pawpaw, and I would like to make this episode for him because of his love for Claremont. This is for you, Pawpaw. I love you, and I miss you. The names in this episode have been changed to protect identities. So I have my coffee, I have my dogs, and I just stuffed my face with pasta. Let's do this. Have you ever thought about making your own podcast? Is there something that the podcast world is just missing that you want to put in it? Well, do what I did and download Anchor. If you haven't heard of it, it is the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's totally free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast, and it's all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. May 5th, 1607, English settlers landed in Claremont. Beginning in the late 17th and early 18th centuries, Claremont was a busy port town on a portion of the James River, shipping many goods, but mostly hogsheads of tobacco. Even though in 1890, Claremont hosted 3 saloons, it never really developed into the metropolis its promoters had envisioned. Today, the town is very small, only having a town hall, tiny library, post office, and a Circle store. Now, the Circle store also doubled as the gas station. A gas station stuck in time, that is, for the gas pumps still have the rotary numbers that move while the gas is pumped. Unfortunately, my childhood growing up in the quaint town is much different than how the town stands today. Growing up, there were children walking down the one main road, bouncing basketballs, a signal for other kids to come play. I was able to go to the river and play in the sand, collecting seashells. Now half the beach has been sold off for summer homes. Every year for Halloween, the town hall was converted into a haunted house that was talked about over many towns. I personally never went into the haunted house. I was too much of a pansy. But from the smiles and screams of people leaving, I knew it was a good one. I don't believe that the haunted house exists anymore. But I'm not the only one with distinctive memories of Claremont. With the age and history of the town, there's bound to be some ghosties. Joe lived down at Sunken Meadows on the James River. One summer night, they were on the deck looking at the river when out of nowhere a saucer-shaped large object came slowly across the sky. It had lights on it in the shape of circles. It was something they had never seen before. It went over top the water. Then, in an instant, it gained speed and was gone. Jenny grew up in Claremont in the 1970s. The house she lived in was built in the 1800s. It was owned by a military officer for a while and eventually landed in her family. They would occasionally hear bumps in the night. As a teenager, her sister had a guitar, and at night they would hear it being played with no one near it. After the guitar was no longer in the home, sometimes they could still hear it being messed with. As a child, she loved going through the graveyard. The small dirt path goes in a circle around the graveyard. Towards the back of the cemetery was an old metal chair. On many occasions at the end of the day, Jenny and friends would go and play there, and they would see a man sitting on the chair, rocking it back and forth. When they would walk towards him, he would fade away, but they weren't afraid. They would still say hello and ask him how he was, with no reply. She heard many ghost stories from her hometown and never really had any problems. The only thing that ever scared her was the Argus Club building, where she attended vacation Bible school. One day she saw a girl at the top of the stairs on the left, and every time she went to the girl's bathroom in the basement after that, she was extremely afraid. As an adult one morning, Jenny was waking up and saw two people standing in her bedroom door, a man and a woman dressed in 1800s clothing. The woman had light colored hair that was pinned up, and the man was sporting a hat and mustache. She could see through them. They were a bland sienna color and had a misty quality to them. When she looked away, they were gone. Tom also grew up in Claremont and moved away when he was older. One day, he decided to return for a visit. At night, while visiting the friends in their home, there were several activities that happened, all between 1 and 1:20 a.m. First, while Tim was in the bathroom, a hand grabbed his ankle tightly. He could feel the fingers and thumb wrap around, and he could physically see the fabric of his pants indent. He kicked his leg rapidly a few times, and it let go. I hope he was sitting down because I would have pooped my pants with something grabbing onto me like that. No, ma'am. No, sir. No, thank you. When he returned to his friends, he went to explain what had just happened when suddenly they heard what sounded like a photo falling from the wall and glass breaking. They jumped up to investigate but found no evidence of anything falling and no broken glass. When they returned to the living room, the spoon in one of their teacups was rattling, and then it spun around the rim of the cup twice. Right after, a candle that was across the room lit itself. They looked directly at the candle when the one beside it also lit itself. There was no spark, no wavering flame, no slow glow. The candle simply just went from out to not out. He was nervous and said, "Okay, put out the lights now." But the candles stayed lit. Tom remembers. Wait, is he Tom or is he Tim? He's Tom. I'm sorry. So he remembers that three orbs appeared and circled around the room 4 or 5 times before leaving and not bothering them anymore. I'm gonna need Tom's friends to let us know what they're doing when Tom isn't there. It's their home. Do they frequently have experiences? Are they messing with something that they shouldn't be? Or are the spirits just like, "Ooh, this guy's new, let's get him"? I also wonder if Tom ever visited his friend again. Hmm. Please ignore my barking dog. for the continuation of this episode. Thank you. Now let's talk about some historical happenings in Claremont. March 1886, a little girl is killed while sitting in her mother's lap. A Captain Delano, who was passing in a tugboat on the James River, decided it would be a good idea to fire his gun toward a flock of geese that was on the shore. Obviously, he missed, and he hit the little girl instead. June 12, 1879, John Harrison was interviewed. He was a former slave of Colonel Allen of Claremont. Mr. Harrison said he was 107 years old and remembers serving Colonel Allen and General Washington wine and whiskey while they smoked and played cards at the manor. Now, why do you need wine and whiskey? That's just being extra. On the 27th of May, year unknown, a body is washed up on shore. A young man it seemed to be. A Mrs. McCoy of Richmond reads the description in the newspaper of the drowning victim in Claremont. 3 weeks earlier, she had said goodbye to her son as he boarded a steamboat to begin a journey to St. Louis. But she hadn't heard from him since. The description of the body matched that of her son. The body of a well-dressed young man was washed ashore here in Claremont 2 weeks ago. The body is thick-set and the face clean-shaven. There was $5.33 in the pockets. He had been struck in the head and thrown overboard, it seems. She went to Claremont to view the body. Although there was a striking resemblance to her son, the body was too decomposed to identify with certainty. The body stayed in Claremont, and Mrs. McCoy decided to wait no longer, hoping to hear from her son. There was never an update if the body was claimed or left nameless. April 29th of 1890, Dr. A.B. Randall, the mayor of Claremont, was very seriously gored by a bull. Dr. Randall was at work in one of the fields beside his home. If it weren't for the quick action of a nearby working man, Dr. Randall would have been killed. He had several ribs broken and was severely internally injured. But I couldn't find any information if he passed away later from the wounds or not. One of the worst home fires in Claremont history was the Williams Fire. April 7th, year unknown, the home of James Williams of Claremont was destroyed by fire around 12 o'clock. The cause of the fire was unknown, and 5 out of the family's 7 children passed away in the flames. One thing I do have to say about these articles, I find, is that they are really messed up. In many of the articles, they always point out if the person they are discussing is white or not, which why does it matter that the homeowner wasn't white when it comes to a fire? They lost their kids. And to frost the cake with the darkest, richest frosting, the title of the article is Children Cremated. Who wrote this? I need to talk to someone because this is effed up. December 27th, 1889, President Benjamin Harrison sailed up a nearby creek to hunt for ducks. According to a telegram sent from Claremont to New York, the only thing that Harrison killed was a very large pig belonging to a Claremont resident named Gilbert Wooten. The national newspaper ran the story, but the president denied it ever happened. From pigs to white-tailed deer, There were numerous accounts of madstones being used for healing properties. A number of articles stated that children would be bit by dogs, and locals in Claremont would use madstones to heal the wounds and prevent rabies, which is amazing. But what are madstones? Well, they are mineral salts combined with hair and fibers from the stomach of white-tailed deer. Yeah, you heard me right. Most are smooth and spherical, and can be the size of a marble to the size of an orange. It's said that madstones from the stomachs of albino deers were thought to have the strongest healing property. Claremont has a little library I personally have only been to maybe once or twice. But while researching, I found out that for a long time, their public library was actually housed in an old dilapidated bus. It wasn't until 1998 that the Claremont Public Library had its first standing building. That's crazy. Speaking of buses, on September 10th, 1928, it was the first day of school, and a bus was taking high school students home for the day when suddenly the bus had to slam on the brakes, hitting a pole and overturning. 17 students were injured in the crash. One was injured gravely. But what about the spirits that now haunt Claremont? Where did they come from? What happened? Today we are visiting two historic places located in this tiny town: the Claremont Manor and the Town Hall. Mrs. Eve Gregory wrote a book titled Claremont Manor, A History. And if any house was haunted, she firmly believed that the Claremont Manor should be one of them. During the ownership of the manor by Benjamin Hilt, Eve was a frequent overnight guest. In a letter to her sister, she spoke of an upstairs door that could not be kept shut. Efforts to prop the door open also failed. When she and her friends woke up in the morning, it was always open. She assumed that someone in the home was playing a joke on them. In 1971, there was a paranormal event as well. Two young girls from the Claremont Academy reported seeing a gray lady in the garden one day, and another day they saw a soldier in Revolutionary War uniform. Even though they described the soldier in great detail, their accounts were dismissed simply because they were kids. In 1976, Claremont Manor was sold to the Kirby family of New Jersey. One Sunday afternoon in July, a guest of the Kirby family was swimming in the pool. They looked up and saw a lady in a long white dress walk out of the manor's north door, cross the terrace, and then disappear behind a tree. The guest assumed it was Mrs. Kirby, but was puzzled when the woman did not reappear on the other side of the tree. He was still watching for her when Mrs. Kirby emerged from another building, away from the manor house. She was not wearing a long dress. August 1978, around 10 p.m., another guest, who was a teacher, saw a gray haired lady in a long gray or white dress pass by the chapel hall into the stairwell of the home and back again. Believing it was Mrs. Kirby's mother in her nightclothes, he refrained from saying anything about it. The next morning, he told Mrs. Kirby that he was hoping to meet her mother, whom he had seen the night before in passing. Mrs. Kirby was surprised by his remark, as her mother had not been anywhere near the home. 2 weeks later, the gray lady was seen near the north door of the house by an employee. That following December, the former owners of the house, the Felician sisters, stated in a letter that they had never had any sightings at the manor. They thought it might have been because they had a bishop bless every room, oh my, in the home shortly before their arrival. You guys good? All right. When trying to figure out who the Gray Lady is, there might be an exclamation. William Allen, the original owner of the home, had a daughter who fell in love with a British soldier in 1781. He was supposedly killed by either her brother or William himself. She was devastated and heartbroken for the rest of her life. Maybe it's her spirit that still roams around Claremont Manor and its gardens. As for the town hall, there is a long standing tale. In the early 1900s, a little girl was killed in the basement. No one can say for sure who did it, but many believe that it was the janitor. Soon after the murder in 1919, the students had their photo taken on the school's front lawn. You can see this on our Instagram page. In the photo, a couple dozen children are lined up on the grass. High above them, in the second floor window, against the black of the room, there's a little small figure alone in the window, barely more than a smudge, but very readable as a little girl. About a century later, John Warfield of DC metro area Ghost Watchers ventured to Claremont with some of his team to investigate the old schoolhouse, now the town hall. Before starting the investigation, John sat down with his friend and person who called them to investigate, Gary. Gary told him how Claremont was mad with spirits. He recalled local hauntings, including houses around the town hall and possibly his own property, which was a native burial ground. At the town hall, locals report many occurrences, such as sound of footsteps in other rooms, someone calling their name, even though the building was empty. Even the town's vice mayor reported hearing a little girl's voice asking for candy in the mayor's office. Now, the vice mayor, which is such a weird thing to say, vice mayor. He wasn't the only one hearing voices in that building. No, no. My grandmother also had an experience. She would frequently go to the town hall to clean it. One day, while cleaning the large auditorium, my mouth, a bird had flown in. She attempted to chase it out, but with the room being so large, by the time the bird went where she wanted it to and she got over to it, it would just fly back from the direction which it came, which was away from the open door. Knowing she needed help, she called the mayor. Eventually, they were able to get the bird out, and my grandma went back to her cleaning. Soon after, though, she heard a voice say, "Good job, Cindy. You did it." She decided that was enough cleaning for the day and promptly left. Before the team left Gary's house, a couple, Tim and Ann, that lived a couple blocks from the town hall, stopped by. They brought a copy of the 1919 schoolhouse photo and some stories of activity in their own home. They have had occasional sounds of something large falling off the wall in their dining room and breaking. Also, unexplained smells like flowers and tobacco. Oh, and cold hands on the back of their necks. That's rude as hell. Mm. The husband explained that he wasn't a believer in spiritual things, never was, and never planned to be. But he admitted that there were things in his house he couldn't explain, and that no one ever slept there alone. His curiosity piqued, John and the team went over to the couple's home before setting up at the town hall. Once inside, John and his team shined their flashlights around the room as the couple described the ghost's antics. They recalled when they were very first newly dating. They were sitting on the couch, and a large crash came from the kitchen. Anne asked him if the activity bothered him. So he got up and went to the kitchen. Said, "Knock it off! You're scaring her." And the crashing stopped. Anne recalled one night getting into bed, and it felt like someone was tucking in her legs. You know how, like, your mom, grandma tucked you into bed all nice and cozy? Someone who wasn't visible was doing that to her legs. Kinda wanna know why only her legs, though. Hmm. In the dining room, extinguished candles would always relight. At first, she believed maybe she wasn't putting them out all the way, but she soon realized that it wasn't her. It wasn't her doing. So she stopped keeping candles in the dining room for fear of them just lighting themselves when she was away. The couple were not much ghost enthusiasts with vivid imaginations, and they were more like owners of a badly behaved dog. They eventually went to the town hall, the reason for their visit, and began setting up. The vice mayor of the town, Lee, stopped by with his girlfriend, Vivian, and retold his account of the little girl asking for candy. By 10 p.m., a little group had gathered on the town hall lawn to watch the investigation from afar. Once everything was set up and running smoothly, they began. John, in the upstairs room where the little girl is thought to be, started his recorder, speaking in a normal voice to not confuse it with the ghostly whispers. "I'd like to start off. My name is John. Is there anyone in this room that would like to speak to us? It's okay. You can come out and talk to us. We're friendly. We just want to know why you're here." After 20 or 30 minutes of trying to contact the little girl's spirit, they made their way down to the mayor's office. The office was very small and difficult for everyone to fit in, so John and Vivian stood in the doorway. This time, with communicating, they asked about the janitor. "Did you know the janitor? Was he a mean man or was he a nice man? We want your story to be told. You just have to find a way to tell us. Tap on an object, turn on a light, try to speak with us. Why are you still here?" There was a pause. "If you are here," another investigator stated, "could you knock twice, like this?" He knocked twice on the mayor's desk. "I would replicate this for you because it'd be really cool, but my dogs just won't let me have any fun." However, a few yards behind him, John heard, faintly but distinctly, another 2 taps. He opened his mouth to say something, but nothing came out. In one of the rooms in the basement, John caught an EVP recording. They asked the spirit if she wanted candy. A little voice repeatedly answered, "Uh-huh." Vivian ended up leaving the investigation early, and when she did, the activity seemed to die down. John thought that the spirit may have felt more comfortable with Vivian, or that Vivian even brought the spirit with her. While they didn't catch much on video, they did get another interesting EVP. On another Made in the Basement, John asked, "What is your purpose for being here?" When they listened back, they heard very clear, "Get out of here." Wow. With Claremont being just across the James River from Jamestown, I can only imagine what stories are out there that haven't been heard. Honestly, I could just keep going with the historicals, and maybe I'll even have a second episode on the true crime of Claremont since it is so close to my heart. There's just so much information out there, it really is overwhelming. But I hope you enjoy these spooksters of some stories with some history thrown in. As always, feel free to follow us on Instagram to keep up with current episodes, or even reach out with your own experiences. I would love to hear from you. I hope you're having a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are listening from. I will talk to you later. Oh, and make sure to hug your grandpa. Okay, bye.